What happens when we begin to realize that the 200-year experiment we've called the American healthcare system has failed? Tune in to Awakened Wellness with Mylaine Riobe, MD, and join the conversation about how to heal our broken system to reverse our current health crisis. The entire world is looking for answers, and the truth is hidden in plain sight. Learn how spirituality, ancient traditions, and cutting-edge science are merging to create a new paradigm of wellness every Wednesday at 12 a.m. and 12 p.m. Eastern Time, with live video shows every first and third Wednesday at 12 p.m. Eastern Time, when you can call in and ask the questions that matter most to you.
We're live.
Thank you, Rachel. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Dr. Mylaine Riobe, and you are watching or listening to Awakened Wellness. And today we are going on yet another mind-expanding, eye-opening adventure into disease prevention and wellness. So we've had a series of podcasts on various diet trends, and we're looking at the pluses and minuses of all of them, so that you can perhaps, be able to make some informed decisions about your own health. The era of self-empowerment is here. We are in the information age, and we are also in the misinformation age, since we do live in a duality. And so it's important for people to get just common sense information that they can use. We're all seeing how easy it is to manipulate numbers and statistics to make things appear the way you would want them to appear, right? For example, using percentages can make something sound very dramatic, right? So if you had 2 of something and you added 1 to it, now you have, a 50% increase. So if you want to dramatize that small number, you can say it was a 50% increase, right? And yet you only increased it by 1. And so numbers are very easy to manipulate. Statistics are very easy to manipulate. And so we have to use different methods, different means to sort through what appears to be very chaotic in order to find what's true. And so today we're looking at intermittent fasting. We've spoken before about the ketogenic diet and the podcast before about alkaline diet. So today we're looking at another trend called intermittent fasting. And that's been around for quite some time. It's not new. It's just new to us. So what is intermittent fasting, right? We always start out with the definition. What is something? And so intermittent fasting is exactly what it sounds like. It is fasting intermittently or on a schedule. And so there are a couple different ways to do that. There is the more popular and easier method of not eating anything for 16 hours, except water, and apparently coffee and tea is allowed. But that's all that you would have access to for 16 hours. And then during an 8-hour window or period of time, you would eat. The logic there is very similar to the keto diet in a sense, because if you starve your body for extended periods of time from any carbohydrates, whether it be because I'm not eating any because I'm on the keto diet, or I'm not eating period because I'm on intermittent fasting, your body will respond similarly. And so what happens in intermittent fasting is during that 16-hour period when you're not eating, your body doesn't have carbs to use. And so it will start digging into fat reserves, and it will start converting those to ketones. And we will go into what is called ketosis during that time frame in those 16 hours. And then for 8 hours, we go ahead and we eat. And there aren't really any significant calorie restrictions on an intermittent fasting diet. However, it's important to be judicious in what you eat, right? you want to be strategic about what you're eating. So in those precious 8 hours, you want to make sure you're eating high quality food. But there are no restrictions in terms of carbs or proteins or fats that are eaten during those 8 hours. And so the logic here is very similar to the ketogenic diet in the sense that you'll be burning fat for your energy stores. And when you look at blogs on intermittent fasting, they will say that there are a lot of studies out there to show their benefits. But if you actually go and you look at the studies, there aren't really that many, and there are very few on actual humans. Most of the studies are done on animals, mice in particular, rodents. And while we share a lot of genetic similarity to mice and rodents, they don't live very long. And so when you're looking for effects of diet on an animal, it's a little different, especially an animal that only has about a 2-year life expectancy. It's a little difficult to do that apples to oranges comparison and jump to humans to make the same assumptions about them. But nonetheless, they do show some cardiovascular benefits, reduction of heart disease. Some weight loss data is also there. It shows that people can lose weight on intermittent fasting diets. There was another recent study done showing that people who had fasted for 48 hours before becoming infected with a bacteria called Salmonella did not show signs of disease in the same way as I'm sorry, it wasn't people, it was also, again, rodents. So I apologize for that. This study was done on rodents. They were purposefully infected with Salmonella bacteria after having been fasted for 48 hours. And what the scientists showed is that because of the change in the gut microbiome, the gastrointestinal tract, the mice that had not eaten for 48 hours actually did better and had less signs of infection than the mice that had been fed. And so there definitely seems to be something to intermittent fasting. But again, the studies that are done are quite short. There are no real long-term studies. We don't know the long-term implications of fasting for 16 hours a day. And so that throws things into question, like, is it safe to do long-term? How long can I do this for? The answer is we really don't know. So we have to use a system of medicine that can answer those questions for us when our science in our modern medicine doesn't have the answers. And so the system I turn to consistently is traditional Chinese medicine. And one thing that we learn in traditional Chinese medicine is that fasting is not very healthy for the human body. And they give a very specific reason for it. They say that if it's done for extended periods of time, it will injure the spleen. And again, in Chinese medicine, when they say spleen, they don't mean what we understand in our allopathic model to be the spleen. When they say spleen, they're talking about an energy field that encompasses the little organ we know as the spleen. It also can encompass the pancreas, which makes our digestive enzymes. It encompasses the intestines as well. And it broadly means our metabolism. It broadly means how we make and use energy to power body function. And so in Chinese medicine, it's well understood that prolonged fasting injures the spleen. So in other words, it injures metabolism. And we know that about a lot of restrictive diets in general. And this is why most of them don't work long term, because they are too restrictive. So if it's that you're severely curtailing the number of calories that you eat for an extended period of time, or that you're fasting for an extended period of time, we know based on experiential data that this injures metabolism. And what happens there is when you injure metabolism, you're not able to burn as many calories as you normally would. And so your body goes into a protective mode, and it starts to shortchange body function. So when your body thinks it's starving, and that's what fasting is mimicking, is a bit of a starvation. Your body feels that as a stress in general. And when your body feels stressed in general, it will shut down certain functions. And we know that that's based on physiology. We've known that for, at least a century or more in our modern medicine. In Chinese medicine, they've known it for thousands of years. And when your body doesn't have enough energy to power its functions, it will turn off functions it perceives to be not as important. And so it will shunt away blood flow from the musculoskeletal system primarily, because in Chinese medicine, the musculoskeletal system is considered the body's exterior. And when we look at how the body works, it's actually true. The first thing your body does when it thinks it's being threatened is it shunts blood flow away from the musculoskeletal system. We see this with trauma. When someone is bleeding heavily, for example, if they've had a terrible car accident and they have internal bleeding, the body will shunt blood flow away from the musculoskeletal system and bring it to the core organs, your heart, your lungs, your brain, your liver. Everything will be shunted to the inside. And this is why when people are bleeding profusely, they look pale. Their lips are blue, they look pale, and they may even pass out. The reason the body makes you pass out is so that it doesn't have to fight gravity to get blood up to your brain. So it makes you go horizontal in order to preserve its energy, and it brings it all to the middle. Stress is no different. Your body will start to shunt chronic stress in particular, not acute stress. In acute stress, you're in fight or flight mode, and your body's going to bring blood flow to the musculoskeletal system so you could run. But what we don't understand physiologically is that only happens for a couple minutes. If your stress is prolonged, if it goes on for more than a couple minutes to hours, and for some people it's months, right, that we're on edge and we're stressed out, the body no longer provides blood flow to the musculoskeletal system. It starts to take it away. And we know that about chronic stress. And so when you are fasting the body for extended periods of time, your body will respond and it will take blood flow away from the musculoskeletal system. Now, the problem with that is you're going to lose muscle mass and you're going to lose bone density if you restrict yourself too long. And we see that, right? We understand that happens. That's simply a physiological response. And we are starting to see some studies on intermittent fasting showing a loss of muscle mass with this diet. The ketogenic diet, we don't see that as much because you're not mimicking starvation. You're simply eating different sources of fuel. You're not restricting the body's access to fuel in general. With intermittent fasting, you're restricting access of the body to food in general, to energy in general. That's different. And your body will start to lose muscle mass and bone density if you do that for too long. So for me, when I make recommendations to clients, every diet doesn't suit everyone, and no particular diet is suitable forever. That's what we always tell people. Again, we change. We're dynamic beings. We look at ourselves and we don't see the change, right? Because we can't really feel or sense that billions of cells are dying and being replaced every day. That trillions of cells are being restored, restocked. We don't feel those changes, but they are in fact going on. And so we have to be aware of that and realize that not every diet will suit everyone. And even if a diet suits you now, there will come a time when it no longer suits you. And so for intermittent fasting, there are a very select number of clients that I would recommend that to. If you're going to use fat stores as a source of energy, you need to have fat stores to burn. So if someone is very lean and doesn't have a lot of body fat, intermittent fasting will not be a good option for them because you're going to have to pay the piper somehow. And if your body doesn't have fat stores to burn, it will burn your muscle mass. And people often ask, well, why does it do that? The answer is very simple. It costs your body a lot less energy to break your muscles down than it costs your body to burn fat. So in order for your body to burn the same amount of fat, it has to burn about 9 calories per gram of fat, whereas it only has to burn 4 calories per gram of protein. And so your body is very efficient. It wants to preserve its energy as much as possible. It's lazy, right? It doesn't want to have to pay $9 to burn fat when it can pay $4 to burn muscle. And so it will preferentially want to go and burn your muscle. And most diets, what we find is the weight loss that results is usually about 50% muscle mass, 50% fat. And people say, well, so what? What happens if my muscles, get burned up? The so what is you gain that weight back and then some, because now you've damaged your metabolism. And remember, your metabolism is the means by which you burn calories. And so if you have lost 20 pounds on a diet and 50% of that weight loss came from losing muscle mass, your metabolism is going to be much lower at the end of the diet than where it was at the beginning of the diet, which means you're going to have to eat a lot less food in order to maintain your weight. And that becomes a slippery slope and a vicious circle because most people can't sit on a 600-700 calorie diet and be healthy for very long. And so people regain their weight back because they've unfortunately destroyed their metabolism through their diet. And when we use traditional Chinese medicine to look at what intermittent fasting is, we can easily see that that will be the end result if people do this diet for too long. Now, that doesn't mean there is no role for intermittent fasting. So again, if you have large fat stores that you need to get rid of, intermittent fasting is a pretty good way to do that. But again, you can't do it for very long. It has to be short and targeted. Otherwise, you're going to lose more muscle mass than you want. And so some people will recommend, well, then I'll go lift weights and I'll do resistance training. And yes, you can do that. But sorry about that. But remember that you need energy to lift weights, right? So if you're only eating for 8 hours a day, you're not going to have enough energy to exercise efficiently. And so you're going to have to be very careful when you go to the gym. And I've experimented on this for myself. If I've only eaten one meal and then I go to the gym, I have a lot less energy. I can lift, I have to lift lighter weights than if I've had 3 meals or 4 meals before I've worked out. And so it's easier to build muscle mass when you are eating more often and feeding the muscles. Muscles require energy and they require sugar to function. Your muscles can't use other forms of energy for their function. And so if we're not eating at least some level of carbohydrates before we work out, and if we haven't put in at least 2 to 3 meals before a workout, it's hard to work out. I've experienced this. I've gotten dizzy trying to work out. I've had to really reduce my weights and take a lot more breaks in between my sets. And sometimes I've had to stop early. I didn't get through the whole workout. And so when you're doing intermittent fasting, you have to be careful. You have to be very cautious when you're going to the gym, lifting weights and doing these things. But yes, it would be recommended that you do something to protect your muscle mass. So if you are lifting weights, your body will be in a muscle building mode and will not be able to access the muscles, and it'll have to burn fat. But you just want to be careful because if you're only eating 8 hours a day, it's easy to injure yourself at the gym. And so you just want to be very careful. I think I saw a question come in. Here's a great comment. Thank you for the last show on keto diet. You convinced me that I needed to make changes to my diet. I'm already losing weight. Oh, that's awesome. Congratulations. Honestly, I'm still craving soda and my favorite treat is cherry pie. Can I eat sugar-free pie on occasion? That's probably not. You'd have to make sure of what's making it sugar-free. So you'd want to make sure it's like a stevia or maybe like no sweetener added because cherries are pretty sweet anyway. A lot of the artificial sweeteners are toxic, so I wouldn't recommend those. And then you'd have to have, the ever smallest of slices. And then again, you have to remember on a keto diet, you're looking at 50-ish grams of carbs a day. So that might be your only carb source for the day. And then soda. There are some naturally made sodas that taste almost the same as regular soda. I don't have the brand name in mind, but I'll try and dig it up. I found some for my kids, and it's a natural soda. So if it's that, then yes, you could probably get away with that. Another question, I don't live in Florida. Is there a way to see you online? Yes, we are a concierge practice. It's the only thing that's a little bit different. But yes, we do a lot of online and phone consultations. I do have a lot of out-of-state patients. I have patients in Ohio. I have patients in New York, New Jersey area, Michigan. So yeah, we do a lot of phone and online, and now, with COVID being here, that's almost become the standard of how people see their physicians. And so yes, we can definitely do that. You can call the office at area code 561-244-5880. That's 561-244-5880. Looks like we're coming up on our first commercial break. You are listening to Awakened Wellness. I'm Dr. Mylaine Riobe, and we are live here on Dream Vision 7 Radio. Let me give you a phone number before we go. It's area code 646-558-8656. That's 646-558-8656. And our meeting ID is 883-695-3587. And to raise your hand, just hit *9, and we would love to hear from you. Any questions or comments are always welcome. Thank you for listening, and we'll be right back.
What happens when we begin to realize that the 200-year experiment we've called the American healthcare system has failed? Learn how spirituality, ancient traditions, and cutting-edge science are merging to create a new paradigm of wellness on Awakened Wellness with Mylaine Riobe, MD. Tune in every Wednesday at 12 a.m. and 12 p.m. Eastern Time with live video shows every first and third Wednesday at 12 p.m. Eastern, when you can call in and ask Dr. Mylaine the questions that matter most to you. Dr. Mylaine is the medical director of the Riobe Institute of Integrative Medicine in Jupiter, Florida. For more information, visit RIOBE-integrativemedicine.com. Dream Vision 7 Radio Network invites you in for this dynamic, forward-thinking show.
Join Dr. Bernie Siegel on Mind Health Matters every Thursday and Friday, 12 a.m. and 12 p.m. Eastern Time on syndicated Dream Vision 7 Radio Network. Bernie will draw from his inspirational personal journey, offering us special nuggets of his sacred wisdom weaved through his delightful stories. Listen in as Bernie reminds us to be fully engaged in life.
Ever wonder what it's like to have your own radio show? Well, wonder no longer, because you can dip into the radio airwaves by being host for the day on syndicated Dream Vision 7 Radio Network. It's a fabulous way to get your radio feet wet. It's an opportunity to market your business, modality, or book, have a guest, mention a sponsor, and take callers. Or you may want to facilitate a lesson by going solo. It's up to you. Listeners can be online, mobile, in cars with Bluetooth, or listen through Amazon's Echo by asking, Alexa, play Dream Vision Vision 7 Radio Network. For more details, go to dreamvision7radio.com and click on Host for the Day.
Looking for a fun and relaxing getaway? Omega Rest and Rejuvenation retreats are a great way to unwind and renew your spirit. Sit and read in the garden, explore the woodland trails, or try a daily yoga or meditation class. You can stretch your body, quiet your mind, and do as much or as little as you choose. Located in Rhinebeck, New York, just 90 miles north of New York City, Omega's natural environment and quiet pace allow for extraordinary experiences to unfold. Learn more at eomega.org.
Delight your kids with an enchanting journey by reading the Paper Doll Kids children's book by Deborah Beauvais and Janine Sullivan. There's even a catchy tune, Kids for Love Song, produced by Bob Sherwood and sung by kids just like yours. The story weaves around 7 paper dolls flying around the world doing good deeds as they bring important attention to our endangered animal friends. There's even a magical ring with a universal message. Kids become interested in service projects, action through compassion, and planting seeds that nurture positive change. The Paper Doll Kids and Kids for Love Song are a production of the Kids for Love Project. Get the book now on Amazon Kindle and the song on CD Baby or iTunes.
This is Dream Vision 7 Radio Network, uniting mankind with universal love. Our shows are created from the heart, bringing each listener to a place of divine enlightenment. Breathe, relax, and enjoy. Let life flow.
We're back.
Thank you, Rachel. And you're listening to Awakened Wellness, and I'm Dr. Riobe. I am your host, and today our topic is intermittent fasting, and a bunch more questions, so this is great. I read that you were going to talk about fasting. I'm not sure I can actually do fasting. As before I tried, I felt sick. Is there a trick to fasting I'm missing? No, there's no trick. It's just not a natural thing to do. And so when you kind of starve the body for extended periods of time, it will somewhat rebel against you. So I tell people if they're going to fast, to do it on some days off, to start it on some days off. So we have a detox program that I prescribe to certain clients at my office where the first 2 days they don't eat at all. And so I always tell them, make sure you're off, you're not working those 2 days because you will not be thinking very clearly. You don't want to be operating heavy machinery, going to the gym. It's not just a normal day where you can expect to go and do the things you normally do. And so you have to kind of be a slug, as your body is adjusting to fasting. Some people feel very tired. They get headaches. They don't think clearly. And, the body is really not designed to not eat. It's not. And I understand that's controversial. It's debatable. People will cite, Neanderthals and Cro-Magnon man who used to be hunter-gatherers. And so they would not eat for sometimes days at a time. And yes, that was something that we did in the past, but we, used that evolutionary stressor to find other ways of making sure we could secure food. And so, does that mean all fasting is bad? No, there are people who need to fast. They have too many fat stores. They have too much inflammation. And so those people will benefit from fasting, but you, of course, want to do it under supervision. You want to be medically cleared first. I think that was a question I saw. You absolutely want to make sure you're healthy enough to fast, right? Do that under the guidance of a physician's clearance and a nutritionist or a registered dietitian's advice and guidance, right? And of course, you can also see a board certified integrative medical doctor such as myself who can kind of do both, clear you and guide you through the program. It's just not something safe to do long term, and it's just not something safe to start without some kind of guidance. So you're not missing anything. It's just not a natural thing for the body. Question, once I did once I do this occasional fasting, how long before I can go back to my regular eating? Well, nobody knows the answer to that question. And it depends on what your definition of regular eating is. So if you were not on a healthy diet before, you don't ever want to go back to what you would call regular eating. You would want to be guided by a nutritionist or a registered dietitian, or again, a board certified integrative medical doctor as to what the appropriate, food would be once you come off of an intermittent fasting program. And again, it just kind of depends. It depends. You want to make sure that you're having your body fat and muscle mass monitored, right? You can do that at a gym. There are calipers you can use to determine body fat versus muscle mass. If you're losing too much muscle, it's not a diet for you. That would be my recommendation. Question, I have diabetes. Would this be an issue? It could be an issue because especially if you're on diabetes medication and you start to fast, you may not be able to take your medication because you wouldn't want to drive your blood sugar down too low. If you are an insulin dependent diabetic, again, this is not a diet to begin on your own. If you have any significant medical conditions, if you're taking medications, just as we talked about last podcast, you may need doses of your medications adjusted. You may need them suspended. You would need to monitor things like blood pressure and blood sugar, heart rate, et cetera, very carefully in doing a diet like this, because it's a stress to the body. Your body does not like to starve. It doesn't. I take daily meds. Should I fast breakfast and still take my pills? Yeah, again, that's kind of what we alluded to before. We would have to know what those meds were, what they were for, and what the potential interactions with fasting would be for those medications. So that would be something you would ask individually to your physician based on what medication you're specifically taking. Question, my husband says he can easily fast for dinner as long as he has beer. Isn't beer a no-no on fasting? Yes, beer is a no-no. That's a lot of sugar. I know now they're coming up with the, calorie-free beer. I can't comment on that. I don't drink beer. But that was not on the list of what they allowed on the intermittent fasting program. So it was water, coffee, black coffee, and tea, I believe. And not like every tea, like maybe green tea or something like that. So I think there are a lot of husbands that like drinking beer, but no, that would not be considered fasting. Question, should I check with my doctor before I start? Absolutely, without question. And make sure your doctor understands what intermittent fasting is, right? If you're introducing this concept to your physician, then you need to consult with a registered dietitian as well, who understands intermittent fasting and what it is. Question, I'm listening to you talk about semi-fasting, and I think I'm hearing you say fasting is not a good thing. Yes, you are. Really, what I tell people is nothing is either good or bad. It depends on who's doing it and why. So fasting may be a good thing temporarily. Again, if you have a large store of fat that you need to get rid of, if you're obese, significantly overweight, and you're having health issues because of being overweight, then yes, this may be something to do. No diet is good long-term. No restrictive diet is good long-term. That is a Chinese medicine principle that I stand by. One thing about traditional Chinese medicine that has just fascinated me and blown my mind consistently is they are never wrong. They are just never wrong. And once you understand traditional Chinese medicine, you can apply it to anything. And so while in our allopathic model, we say, well, we don't have studies, we don't know. The truth is, there is a system of medicine that does know. It's energy-based systems of medicine, Chinese medicine being one, and Ayurveda being the other. And of course you can do things like kinesiology, and there are other energy-based types of systems that will give us answers that our allopathic model cannot. We can't study everything, it's not possible. And even when we do study things, there are so many variables we can't control for, it almost makes the idea of trying to study something ridiculous. But in Chinese medicine, they have these principles and these kind of universal laws, so to speak, that are ancient, and somehow they intuited these things, and these laws or theories, as they call them, have withstood the test of time over thousands upon thousands of years. And so when I have a question, I always answer it through the lens of Chinese medicine. And I have found over the years that it has been the most consistent brand of medicine to answer questions when the outcomes are unknown. And so in traditional Chinese medicine, they are very clear that fasting, it injures the spleen, it injures your metabolism. And we do know that, that's not unknown to us in the allopathic world. But when we talk about weight loss, we tend to just talk about the scale. On the scale, I lost 20 pounds, therefore my diet was successful. But what you really want to know is how much of those 20 pounds, was protein in muscle mass, and how much of that 20 pounds was fat. And that's important, and we don't talk about that. And that's the most important thing, is you want to save all your muscle mass that you possibly can and lose only fat. And intermittent fasting does not provide for that if it's done for an extended period of time. So I'm not a huge fan of fasting, but that doesn't mean I never recommend it. I do have clients that I recommend it to. It's just not that many. Let's see, Deed has a question. Thank you for your question, Deed. Is it okay to fast breakfast as I am lean and muscular and I work as a carpenter? Again, we go back to Chinese medicine to answer this question, right? In Chinese medicine, they have a premise that says, eat breakfast like a king, eat lunch like, I think it's a queen, and eat dinner like a pauper, right? And so in traditional Chinese medicine, breakfast is the most important meal. And people ask, well, why is that? Well, because you've been fasting for up to 8 to 10 hours, right? Most people don't eat right before they go to bed. So there might be a 2-hour window there where you're not eating, and then you're sleeping for about 8 hours, hopefully, right? So that's 10 hours of not eating. Now, if you get up, especially as a carpenter, as you indicated, that's a lot of work. You're lifting, you're moving around. And so if you're not feeding the body to withstand that work, you're going to be in an energy deficit. And if you're lean, you're not going to have a lot of fat to burn. And so you're going to lose bone density and muscle mass if you're not, careful with that. So in Chinese medicine, they consider fasting to be, you've been sleeping for 8 hours, and you didn't eat right before you went to sleep. So you're already in a fasting state when you wake up. And so they want breakfast, they recommend breakfast be your largest meal of the day so that you have the energy to power your day. And again, that depends on what you do, right? If you have a desk job and you're sitting at a desk all day, then you don't want a big breakfast by any stretch. And you don't want the typical American breakfast, right? Very carby, the American breakfast, the cereal and the bagels and the English muffins. And you want to have breakfast be kind of like a real meal, where you're having your protein source, tons of vegetables. If you want to throw in some berries and things like that, you can, and some good fat for breakfast. And again, with good proportions, as we've discussed previously in our podcast. So I hope that helps, but breakfast is an extremely important meal. I strongly recommend to my patients that they eat breakfast. Some people, when they have a lower metabolism, they don't feel hungry in the morning and they don't want to eat. And that's not necessarily healthy according to traditional Chinese medicine. Lack of appetite, as they define it, is a sign of a weak spleen. And so again, that's a sign of a little bit of metabolic injury. And so it's kind of normal to want to eat after you've woken up. Maybe not right away, but within about 30 minutes or so, you probably want to eat. But again, something very healthy. I think the American breakfast is, again, I don't think it meets criteria to be called food. So we want to make sure that we eat according to what we know to be, a healthier meal for breakfast. So I hope that answers your question, Deed. Thank you for the question. My sister, a YouTube question, but I don't know who's asking the question, but thank you for it. My sister has migraines. Is fasting safe for her? That's almost an impossible question to answer because we would have to know what's causing her migraines. In Chinese medicine, there are several different reasons for migraines, and so we would need to know which reasons apply to your sister. But what I would recommend is she would probably want to see someone to find out the cause of the migraines, to correct them. And then again, depending on what those causes are, have a conversation with the physician that she's seeing about intermittent fasting to see if it would suit her. So I can't say that it would be safe or not safe. I don't know enough, so I apologize. I can't really answer that question very well. Let's see. I think I got them all. Okay, great. Let's see, what time is it? Oh, looks like we're due for another commercial break. So thanks for these questions and comments. They're fantastic. And so we're here live on Dream Vision 7 Radio. I'm Dr. Mylaine Riobe, and you are listening to Awakened Wellness, and we'll be right back.
What happens when we begin to realize that the 200-year experiment we've called the American healthcare system has failed? Learn how spirituality, ancient traditions, and cutting-edge science are merging to create a new paradigm of wellness on Awakened Wellness with Mylaine Riobe, MD. Tune in every Wednesday at 12 a.m. and 12 p.m. Eastern Time with live video shows every first and third Wednesday at 12 p.m. Eastern, when you can call in and ask Dr. Mylaine the questions that matter most to you. Dr. Mylaine is the medical director of the Riobe Institute of Integrative Medicine in Jupiter, Florida. For more information, visit RIOBE-integrativemedicine.com. Dream Vision 7 Radio Network invites you in for this dynamic, forward-thinking show.
EDECIA is a U.S. nonprofit dedicated to the dream of ending childhood malnutrition for millions of children around the world through the manufacture of Plumpy Nut and other nutrient-rich, peanut-based, ready-to-use foods. EDECIA has already delivered life and hope to nearly 1 million children in over 26 developing countries. To find out how you can join EDECIA's dream of ending childhood malnutrition, please visit edeciaglobal.org.
What if dreams can diagnose your life? What if we can meet the love of our life in dreams? Join host Kat O'Keefe-Canavas, the #1 internationally best-selling author of Dreams That Can Save Your Life, written with Duke University medical doctor Larry Burke. Dreaming Healing is where we'll explore dreams, research, and interpret dreams from you, the caller. Dreaming Healing shows can be heard every Tuesday at 9 a.m. and 9 p.m. Eastern, with live shows on the first and third evening at 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific Time on syndicated Dream Vision 7 Radio Network. Come live your dreams out loud with Kat.
Are you searching for a way to help create global change? Dream Vision 7 Radio Network's vision is to have an eclectic group of radio hosts dedicated to educating, enlightening, and helping humankind with positive messages and tools that enhance lives using different modalities and programs. If you would like to join our team and help illuminate the universe, call Deborah at 508-226-1723 or Deborah at dreamvision7radio.com. This is Dream Vision 7 Radio Network, uniting mankind with universal love. Our Our shows are created from the heart, bringing each listener to a place of divine enlightenment. Breathe, relax, and enjoy. Let life flow.
We're back.
Thank you, Rachel. And you're listening to Awakened Wellness. And today we're talking about intermittent fasting, what it is and if it's right for you. So again, in Chinese medicine, really nothing is good or bad. And, in spirituality, we know the same. Nothing is really good or bad. It just depends on the circumstances. Sometimes things we think are bad are useful. And sometimes things we think are good are not useful, right? And so intermittent fasting or anything else is exactly the same. So for some people, it will be appropriate, if you have, significant medical condition and you need to get your body into a state where it's burning fat so that you can reduce your risk of disease, then yes, for a specific period of time, a diet such as intermittent fasting would be of value under guidance and after medical clearance. But again, if you don't have a lot of fat stores to mobilize, for example, our caller who is lean and has a career that demands a lot of energy expenditure, intermittent fasting would probably not be a good option because there's nothing to use as energy when you're in the fasting state except muscle. If you don't have a lot of fat, you're going to lose muscle and bone. And that's not safe long-term. So while you might see some short-term benefits, the long-term benefits may not be appropriate. And that's kind of a flaw in our medical studies. We tend to study things for 3 or 6 months, just long enough that the FDA will give us approval. And then we launch a drug and only to have to recall it after it's been on the market for a year or two, because we see that long-term use is fatal in some cases, extremely dangerous. And then drugs are withdrawn from the market, and so short-term gains do not translate into long-term gains. Sometimes it's kind of a smoke and mirrors kind of thing, and then it turns on us. So we want to be very cautious with anything, even things that are natural can be toxic, right? Arsenic's natural, but we don't want, that in our food. And so, we see that with statin drugs, right? Statin drugs were studied for a short period of time, got FDA approval, put on the market. And now we're seeing after extended use, risk of diabetes goes up, risk of renal failure goes up. And so we don't get to know those things in the medical studies. It's people that become the experiment after the drug is released on the market. We had Vioxx and other anti-inflammatories, again, studied short-term, everyone was told that it was safe, it was great, FDA approved, released, and then withdrawn from the market a couple years later. And so I tell people to exercise caution in any decision they're making, whether they're using something natural, something artificial. Always know that just because it was studied and FDA approved doesn't make it safe, because we change, right? When you expose the body to something for 3 months, you're going to get a certain result. But if you keep exposing your body to that same thing over and over and over, at some point, you're going to kind of go over the other side of the mountain, right? So nothing restrictive is great long-term. Nothing that is moving the body aggressively or permanently in one direction is ever good. Just like when we're driving somewhere, right? We don't put the steering wheel for a straight line to where we're going and we don't ever steer the car, right? We would never make it to our destination. So you have to keep steering as you're going. Just because that if I go in a straight line, I'll get to California, You can't just hold your steering wheel rigid and do the same thing, until you get to California. You're never going to get there. So it's a meandering. And so, being self-empowered to ask the right questions is extremely important. Knowing what resources to trust is extremely important, right? People are, I guess, sometimes shocked when I tell them I haven't watched the news since the elections. I don't watch the news. But yet I know what's going on. Why? Because I choose my sources. So if I want to know COVID numbers, I go to the World Health Organization, I go to international health organizations, and I go to the CDC. I don't watch the news, right? Because you don't get information that's appropriate from anywhere except going and looking at the data yourself. And so becoming an empowered healthcare consumer is really about knowing how to go get the data yourself and looking at the data for yourself. And having a curious mind, always asking questions, and making sure the answers pass the sniff test, right? We know intuitively when we're being told something that is in alignment with us and when we're being told something that's not in alignment with us. And the more we center ourselves, the more we can find that data comes to you. You don't have to go looking for it, right? So I think we have another question. I learned so much from your show. Thank you. Do you have a way to sign up for more information? How would I find out what topic is your next show? Yes, so we have a newsletter. And so absolutely, if you go to our website at riobeintegrativemedicine.com, and Riobe is spelled R-I-O-B as in boy, E as in Edward, integrative with an I-V-E at the end, medicine.com. Right at the landing page, you can sign up for our newsletter. You can also get the first 3 chapters of my new book, Faith, that's out. By signing up for our newsletter, and we publish the upcoming podcasts through our newsletter. So absolutely, that'd be a great place for you to go. And we publish our newsletters and provide more information that you can find useful and self-empowering, so you can make informed healthcare decisions for you and your loved ones. So thanks for that question. And do you have a website with older shows? We are making a website, actually. We do have, our website is up with some older shows. We haven't published this newer set of podcasts on it, but we are working on a new site that will house those. But in the meanwhile, they are viewable on Dream Vision 7 Radio. You can go to that website, look up my page, and our archived podcasts are there for review. So thank you for that. And we are creating a community website where we'll have our upcoming webinars and workshops that we're working on for my book, Faith. I really enjoyed writing this book. It was funny. It took me about 3 or 4 years to write it because it would disappear. I would be typing away on my computer and I had backups everywhere, and the data on my computer vanished and the backups vanished. I had it backed up to the cloud, that vanished. And so that delayed my restarting to write the book for a year because I was so mad. And then I started writing it again and the data vanished again. And I had even more backups the second time. So it was pretty mind blowing. And so I said, okay, you want the book written, you're gonna have to write it yourself because I'm done. And I took another year plus off from writing it. And then finished it just recently, actually. And I guess everything happens for a reason. We hadn't experienced COVID yet. And COVID taught me a lot of things that I've added to the book. So although I was pretty mad, I guess it all worked out in the end, right? So let me just make sure we don't have any more questions. No. So yeah, in our workshops, what we'll be talking about is really going through each section of the book. One thing I've realized in working with my clients is the information sounds good and it makes sense when we're face to face. And then when they're home trying to figure out how to apply it to their lives, things get a little confusing. And so the workshops are geared towards integrating the principles of the book into your life, weaving it into your life. You know, what does it look like when I'm out in the world trying to apply these principles to keep myself healthy, to empower myself, and to make myself the healthcare consumer that I wish to be. Because if we just line up in our allopathic model, unfortunately, you know, the writing's on the wall there. We are almost guaranteed to get sick. I joke around about this, but it's very serious. You know, insurance only insures disease. It does not insure wellness. And, you know, not only doesn't it provide insurance for wellness, like it doesn't pay for wellness, it ensures that you get sick. And so this is not a model that is sustainable. It's not a model that we can continue to use. And so this book is about introducing different models that have been in use for thousands of years elsewhere, as well as introducing the concept of functional medicine, which is an accepted medical specialty now with the American Board of Physician Specialties, and really beginning to rebuild what we call a healthcare system, which, as Marianne Williamson pointed out very well in the presidential debates, you know, we don't have a healthcare system, we have a sick care system. And so this book is about changing that, and I hope you'll join me in that endeavor. So I think that's all the time we have for today. So yes, it is. So thank you so much, as always, for listening. It's always a pleasure. I love the questions, the comments, they're amazing. And I appreciate all of your support. And we'll start a new series next time. So I'll be publishing the schedule on our newsletter. So I hope you'll join the newsletter. And that's all the time we have for today. So I send you many, many blessings. We're here live on Dream Vision 7 Radio. And until next time, thank you.
Join us next time on Awakened Wellness with Mylaine Riobe, MD, to learn how spirituality, ancient traditions, and cutting-edge science are merging to create a new paradigm of wellness. Awakened Wellness airs every Wednesday at 12 a.m. and 12 p.m. Eastern Time, with live video shows every first and third Wednesday at 12 p.m. Eastern of each month. Meanwhile, you can join our Facebook page at facebook.com/awakenedwellness and let us know what you'd like to discuss on future episodes. Dr. Mylaine is the medical director of the Riobe Institute of Integrative Medicine in Jupiter, Florida. For more information, visit riobeintegrativemedicine.com. This show is part of the Dream Vision 7 Radio Network.
This is Dream Vision 7 Radio Network, uniting mankind with universal love. Our shows are created from the heart, bringing each listener to a place of divine enlightenment. Breathe, relax, and enjoy. Let life flow.